Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 205.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. And as you know, I'm your host, Jay Massey, and we've been talking to individuals who have been going out there doing some imaginary things, right? You've been going, wow, how on earth does all of these people exist? I mean, you're striving to get to $100,000 a year, and here is yet another person who's been able to do this in a 30-day period. You're like, wow, that sounds absolutely wonderful. Well, I think today's guest is going to be a little bit of a different story for some of you, and you'll be able to glean even more insight of what it's going to take for you to take your business and, most importantly, know when to pivot to the correct business models to make things work. So I know you've been enjoying them. I know you've been thinking about, man, there's so many things that they have in common. We'll see if we can't find some differences, but I'm almost willing to bet that today's guest, Mike Schmidt, is going to say some very similar things that you've heard before. What's really cool is that he's taking time out of his day while he's still expecting the birth of his son. So keep this in mind. He could be a little frazzled and called away at the last minute to go to the hospital, but I think we'll make it through this interview. Mike, are you there?
I sure am. How you doing, Jay?
So far, so good. So far, so good. Glad to have you. Now, as a first-time guest on the show, what if you could, for us, please, give us a little bit of the background and history of some of the things that you've done and do that led to the first time you ever did $100,000 in a month.
Sure. Well, so I own a website design and internet marketing company based in Tucson, Arizona, and we've got a team here of 20 people full-time in office that help build web solutions and internet marketing projects for a lot of different clients, mostly locally to Southern Arizona, but we have clients across the U.S. And we started our life not so different from a lot of web design companies that are out there creating a lot of different really cool web projects for people. And I started the company about 6 months or so before I graduated from the University of Arizona. And so at that time, I had a lot of support from my dad, who was happy to see me in business and happy to be a pathway for me to be, off of his payroll. And to say that I've done that would be an understatement. We've done a lot of really cool things in building a business, but at this point we've built over 1,000 websites. So in that time period, we've really honed in on those skills. And one of the things that's been really key to our success is the step-by-step process that we've created. And it's really about transparency and education of our clients so that way they can get the best result. And also we can apply the learnings of doing this over 1,000 times to each of the clients that come through this here. And, it wasn't all that long ago that we really looked at our model and said, hey, things are going well, but could it be better? And that's led to us developing a new business model that's kind of changes the way a lot of web design companies do things. That has allowed us to build a lot of recurring revenue opportunities in our business, and which is why I'm here talking to you today, is bringing more than $100,000 a month in recurring revenue for us. Right now, we're at just about $115,000 a month. So while there's a lot of people struggling, as you mentioned, to make $100,000 in a year, and there's been a lot of people who are now doing that $100,000 in a month, we can. I'm very proud to say that we are doing that on a monthly basis which is a way different picture than it was just a few years ago.
Well, and that's the thing that I like. Many of the other individuals, the idea of doing $100,000 in a month, most people are automatically going to default to things like real estate, or you did it 1 month but you can't do it the next month, and very few are thinking about the possibilities of how could I do a business myself that reaches that level of revenue on a monthly basis in a recurring fashion, and it not be real estate. So you've managed to do that in a space where not only is it recurring, but that's not the traditional business model.
Yeah, you're right. It's really not typical of a company like ours to do that, and it really started with, I can't say that I said, hey, I'm setting the outcome to be more than 100,000 in a month, but really the outcome was, how do we create more stability in our business? The main driver behind wanting to do this was the stress associated with starting each month feeling like I had to climb a mountain in order to hit our numbers, and every new team member that came to work for us was another responsibility to take care of.
Right.
And those things add up way quicker than I had imagined going into it.
You do realize you're adding a new team member in the next few days, right?
Yeah, that's right. We're watching the clock, and be very happy to welcome him to the team. So
yeah, and that team member, he can't be fired, and he will cost more than the others for a long, long time, way before he contributes any revenue to the system.
That's true. That's true. It's going to be a passion project here for sure.
There it is. A passion project indeed. So I'm curious to know, are you like most people where it takes, about 7 years to be that overnight success, or did it actually happen overnight for you?
Yeah, it's definitely not been an overnight success, and it's been we've been in business since 2003. So, we're working on 13 years here, and, while I would consider what we've done a huge success, I'm certainly not where I want to be yet. I've got much bigger aspirations to continue to build what we've got here. So, that's going to take some more time, and it's been a lot of iteration and a lot of learnings, and a lot of failures, and a lot of just assessment of what we could do differently in order to get closer to that outcome.
So since you bring up the concept of subject of failures, what would you consider them necessary in terms of being able to achieve it? Could you have achieved this without any failures? Because I've seen many people take time and weeks and months and sometimes years trying to perfect all of their processes without even getting started, because they want to know, well, what happens on the third Tuesday of a blue moon if this happens, and how am I going to respond? And I need to know before I get started.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the saying, winners lose more often than losers lose. We lose all the time in lots of little ways, but it's how we feel about it and how we choose to react to that is really the key. It's absolutely part of the process for us to make mistakes. Sometimes those mistakes are really minute and they're really easy to overcome, and other times they're maybe more of a financial burden or a bigger deal that we have to deal with. But it's every step has been a key piece of our success, whether it's been a true success or a failure. I had a client that I've worked with for a long time, and he, like a lot of people, have clients that are really easy to work with and some that are more challenging. And he taught me that those challenges are the things that make us stronger, even though in the moment it really doesn't feel so great.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
not at all. In fact, though, I've grown to understand that a dissatisfied customer is actually some of the best information on how you can improve your business. And the cool thing is that they offer it for free.
That's true. And just because they're dissatisfied, doesn't mean that you have to fix the dissatisfaction. It just means you have to acknowledge it and decide how to move forward. Because sometimes it's helpful in fixing that for that client. Other times it shines a light into what might be wrong about a process or something internal or assumptions that I might be making that need to change as well. So there's really a lot of different levels to client feedback, especially ones that might not be as fun to hear, because it's more than just surface level. I got to do everything to make this person happy. If you could do that, great. But if I also get the other side of that benefit, that's where I see the most growth and where I've seen the most shift in our business.
So with this idea of, mistakes having degrees and categories, are there any that you would call like, oh my God, when this happened, I did not think we were going to make it?
Well, interesting story. So I had our accountant give me a call on a Tuesday morning. I just got back from a vacation, and he left me a voicemail.
This
and then
isn't starting off well.
Yeah, right. No, you know where this is going for sure, for sure. So stick along. This is gonna be fun. So he left a voicemail. Then I saw him email me too, which was weird. Like that was the first red flag. Okay, he called me, he emailed me. Now my accountant's like a good buddy. So the fact that he was trying to get a hold of me so urgently just seemed kind of odd. So I showed up to the office. I walked down. He's in the neighboring suite to ours. I walked over his office, and I walked in, and it wasn't the usual like, "Hey, how was your vacation? How's things going?" He walked in and he closed the door behind me, which was like the other signal. Like, why is he closing the door? Like we're usually just on friendly terms, and we're just gonna kind of go through what we need to do. So like I'm already sweating, like I'm already panicking, wondering like what's going on? Why is he not acting like he normally is? And he just kind of quietly says to me, Mike, you don't have enough money to cover payroll this week. Do you have anything you can do to make that happen? And here's what it is. And like he kept on talking for a while, and my ears stopped listening, and it just got inside my head, and my vision just kind of narrowed, and I couldn't comprehend. I mean, I knew what was happening. I'd be lying if I said it didn't come as somewhat of a surprise, but I just didn't know what to do about it. So, the funny thing is I was so distracted that the thing that I knew I needed to do was to pick up the phone, get out there, meet with clients, sell projects, and make some stuff happen really quick. But that was like the hardest thing for me to conjure up that feeling to go do that, because all I could think of was the fear and the embarrassment and what was I going to tell my employees. And I was already playing out the scenarios in my head of how this thing was all going to be coming down when that hadn't really happened yet. I was forecasting this negative vision of what was happening now, as opposed to focusing on what I needed to do. And so that stress, it was just unbearable. And I imagine a lot of people can relate to that feeling if they've had that in that business. Not being able to pay your employees is probably one of the scariest thoughts. And so I knew at that point I didn't want that to happen. Of course, we solved the problem. I wouldn't be here talking to you about this today if
so there were
we
no
hadn't pulled it
pitchforks
out.
and torches. No pitchforks and torches. You figured out a solution.
Yeah, we figured out a solution for sure. It's it's something that we from that negative place and from that fear, we said, okay, what is the opposite of what do we want? What do I want? I want the ability to have no stress. I want to be able to focus on clients and give them great service. I want to be able to pay my employees and take care of them better than they could be taken care of at any other company. I want to build, something for myself here. And so once I've outlined those things, then I could start looking at what are the ways in which I could do that? What are the ways that I never have to be sitting in my accountant's office again saying, what am I going to do and how am I going to make my payroll this week?
Yes, and that's just being real from the seat of the CEO style. I mean, these are things that, we think about the idea of having, $100,000 in a month. There are some realities sometimes, and I've had those types of conversations with my own CFO, and in talking to her, it's just funny how, and I think about this, having been an employee before, it kind of makes you wonder how many times did the owner of the company come close to not making payroll? Like, how many times, what were they doing behind the scenes? I mean, you didn't see them at the office. You assumed they were at the golf course.
Right.
Maybe what they were doing was scrambling, trying to figure out, how am I going to make payroll?
Right.
And that's just a funny thought in and of itself. But it sounds as though, I mean, by going to this recurring revenue model, that's got to be a thing of the past.
Yeah, it's definitely something where we now start the month knowing exactly what we've got coming in. So I'm not sitting at the bottom of the hill looking at what I've got to make in terms of payroll and expenses, and then what we want to make on top of that for profit. I know exactly what's coming in, so that way I can plan everything else around that whole concept, which is a totally different place to be coming from. There is not stress associated with that. And the funny thing is working from that position allows a lot clearer thinking. So I talked about kind of that narrowed vision and that scarcity mindset, because I can start from a place of that lack of stress. I can focus on what I want to build on top of that. Now we happen to cover all of those expenses, and then we can go out and we choose to sell more to clients, which helps us build an even bigger and better business.
Indeed. And while we're talking about mindset, I mean, for me, it's been something that's important. I believe I would like to hear your thought processes just around having the proper mindsets. I mean, for example, do you believe that all successes start in the mind?
Yeah, being able to visualize, or as I like to say, like setting an outcome of what I want is really key. And I'm guilty, like a lot of people, of forgetting that. When I don't set an outcome, I shouldn't be surprised that I don't reach any part of success. But the times that I've written down what I want and discuss it, it's scary how often that's come true. Maybe it doesn't happen the timeline that I want, but as I've looked back through my journals and my notes over the years, and because I'd have a tendency of writing what it is that I'm looking for, and also what are the things that are stressing me, and how can I fix the things that are stressing me out. It's really rewarding to be able to look at and say, here's the things that I wanted to happen, and be able to look around and see that they've come to be. So I can't say anything, but can't say anything that's been anything about just really setting that outcome. That's what it's really about.
Yes. In fact, if you don't write it down, it's almost guaranteeing it doesn't happen to some degree. And I find that very, very interesting. So when you were in, here's an interesting question then. When you were, it was University of Arizona, correct?
That's right.
So when you were there, did you ever envision the idea of what you have today?
Not back then. I mean, it took me a number of years and a lot of reading and working with a lot of coaches and mentors for me to understand the power in setting a vision and setting that outcome. For the first few years of my business, it was just, hey, I've got a business card, I've got a website, let's just make something happen. And I wasn't purposefully building anything. And I really believe that if I had that information at that time, I would be further than I am at this moment, because there was a number of years that I just sat there letting business happen to me, letting life happen to me without setting any sort of objective other than just being really proud of the fact that I had started a business, which is great at first, but it doesn't last forever and get me where I want to go.
So would it be fair to say that the version of the business today, is this like a Windows 95, Windows 3 to Windows 95, Windows NT to Windows 2000, all the way to Windows 10? So is it a steady and incremental improvement process?
Yeah, we're, in our company, we set everything out 90 days at a time, and then we also look at 6 months at a time. So really, this is probably the most productive and focused around objectives we've ever been. And I've got a really strong leadership team that helps us set that vision and really execute on that. So absolutely, it's continual improvement and really focusing on what it is we need to do today, no matter how small, in order to get us that much closer to what we've identified that we want.
So what would you say then is, how has your role changed as the company grew? And more importantly, what systems would you say are absolutely critical? Like if I'm going to go out there and I want to build something that's going to hit similar revenues, what systems are absolutely critical to make that happen?
My role has definitely changed. I mean, I was building the websites and cleaning up the floors when I first started. I was employee number one, and everything passed through me.
Right.
And transition to today, I get to work on a lot of projects that are more strategic in nature. And the reason I get to work on those projects is because of systems, and it's because of the systems that we've created in various aspects of our business. So, as an example, we in the website design side of the house, we have a binder that we use that really helps break down the steps that we take in building a website. And each client gets a copy of that when they work with us, and it helps to not only educate the client about what we're doing, but ensure that our team is following the steps in the same order that they should do each time. And those steps take into consideration the learnings that we've had across all the different projects that we've worked on. And once we have that system, now we can work on how do we tweak the system and allow the team members to run that system. And that's a much different place to be in than doing every project just a little bit differently.
Right.
And that learning around systems has been applied to lots of different places in our business. And we say to our team members, and especially when they're new, we say, look to the system for the answer. But then we also say, sometimes there isn't a system for something. And so there's that. We need to look at where we can continue to build and grow the systems where they're needed.
Well, and okay, that brings a really great question then that I know that if I don't ask you, we're going to get the email for.
Okay.
How does one take, someone listening right now that maybe they're starting from zero, so to speak. They are currently the chief cook and bottle washer, and they want to begin to build this system so that they can begin to put people in place. How do you do that? How do you actually begin to construct those manuals or SOPs or whatever it is that you guys are using to be able to put those, to document this process? Okay, so have you figured it out yet that this is going to keep going all month long? We are bringing to you individuals who have managed to do $100,000 in a 30-day period, and I'm doing my best to find as many different people as we possibly can. Here's the point. The point is, I hope you're taking notes. I hope you're figuring out the processes, the things that they have in common, and most importantly, you are beginning to build your own roadmap. And well, speaking of roadmaps, if you'd like, you can send a text message. Text the word book to 72,000. That's 72000. Again, text the word book to 72,000, and I will give you my road map. It's called Cashflow Diary, 10 Steps to Creating Wealth in Any Economy. That'll give you a lot of the basic business principles that you could use right now to go out there and build your business. For those of you outside of the U.S., feel free to go over to cashflowdiary.com/free book, cashflowdiary.com/free book. Claim your electronic copy, download it now. Here's the thing. There is no time like the present. If not now, when? If not you, who? If not this, what? Get started. Let's get back and see what else Mike has to share with us.
So there's probably two books that were pretty instrumental in planting the seed with me around systems. One was E-Myth by Michael Gerber, and really just understanding that whole concept of employees run systems, systems run your business. And so that's a great one that I've come back to again and again, because it's there's so much value in that book at every stage of your business's growth. And then the other one is Lead or Get Off the Pot by Pat Croce. I picked this one up. I picked this one up on the way out of a Barnes and Noble in that dollar bin on the way out, and I thought that the title was a little ridiculous, but it was like $1, so I'm like, I was looking for something to read. But I'll tell you, that book has been really instrumental, because it helped me to break down how to set an objective and break it into smaller action steps. And that's been really key, because I've been guilty of setting a goal, but not really understanding all the things that need to happen in order to get that goal done. And if I don't break that down, it makes achieving that goal really hard or impossible. And that book put a really good framework around it. And there's some really good stories about his various businesses that he's run that were really inspiring to help me create those systems.
Mike, it takes around 9 months for a baby to actually be born.
I hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a process to that.
There is a process. That reminds me, I should check my phone, make sure that my wife's not texting that she's at the hospital. Okay, we're good.
I know. Exactly. Right. Cause you never know when you're that close. It's like, it could be at any moment. Now, when it comes to the idea of putting a system in place, how many refinements does it take before you go, okay, we finally got it?
Well, usually our first draft, we'll aim to get it out as soon as possible, because the only way we know if it's going to work or not is actually using it. And so there's no such thing as being perfect. And for that reason,
say that again. I think a lot of people need to hear that part.
Yeah, what you put out there does not need to be perfect. And like, as an example of that, a lot of the systems that we build, they're on paper, they're on whiteboards, they're on things that are not like software and digital. And some people just grind their teeth at that they can't believe that we're a marketing and technology company that's using these things. But I'll tell you, I can iterate way quicker on a piece of paper than I can talking to a developer about making a software change.
And so, paper? Ooh, I'm telling.
Yeah. Well, hey, the secret is out, and the secret works. I'll tell you. So we get it out as quickly as possible, and then we iterate. Now, sometimes that thing that we put out there will just work long enough to get us over whatever the issue was, and it stays that way for a long time, and we don't iterate as much on that. Other times, it'll be something where it's continual. That binder I mentioned, we just released our version 3.0 of that. So we've had lots of minor updates in the middle of those, but we've had 3 major updates, in the probably 10 years since that thing has been used.
And I'm assuming the updates come in the form of sticky notes attached to the pages.
Well, that's how it started, that's for sure. But when we change to a next version number, actually everything gets reprinted and reorganized, and it's really nice, and everyone's really very excited about it. So,
got it. That makes sense. See, paper still has a function. This is good. Now, you mentioned briefly a little bit ago about you mentioned it really, really fast about journaling, and I'm assuming that this is something that you do on a frequent or a consistent basis of some kind. What other, habits would you say that you've obtained or let go of, I should say, because some of them you may have had to let go of, that have helped you to be where you are today?
So you've probably heard, maybe your listeners may have heard of Hal Elrod and his Miracle Morning. I'm a huge fan of the Savers, which is basically a morning routine to set the day and set the focus and direction of what I need to be thinking about, as opposed to just letting the day happen to me. So, those components are been really key. The ones that I like the most, you mentioned the journaling, because journaling for me is a little bit about reflection about like what's going on, but a lot about setting what I want to have happen. So my perspective on when I'm writing a journal in the morning, I'll take the perspective of as if I was writing it that night, and I'll say, what happened today? Which makes for an interesting journal, because I'll go back and look at it, because my journal doesn't mean that actually happened that day. Yeah, I wish it did. Like when I'm dead and gone, somebody reads this thing, somebody's gonna be like, man, this guy was awesome every day. But I'll tell you, even if 50 or 80% of that stuff happens, which it regularly does, it makes for an excellent day. Also exercise in the morning really sets my mind in the right area, and it doesn't have to be a major workout. Even just 20 minutes of something at home just to get myself going has been a real game changer for me.
Well, if I'll tell you this, if you pick up one of those nifty little Apple Watches, they're going to want to stretch that to 30 minutes a day. You don't get the little award at the end of the day if you don't do 30 minutes.
Well, Apple knows best. So,
Totally got you there. So when it comes to, being consistent, I should say, would you say that that's something that you've had to grow in, that you were just born with? Is that something that other people can master? Is it even necessary in order to get there?
Definitely wasn't born with it. And it's something that I still struggle with to be consistent, though that practice has helped me in a lot of different areas. I find that if I can be consistent with journaling or consistent with meditation or consistent with exercise, it helps me be consistent in other areas once my workday starts, and or with relationships. And so it's a kind of a foundational idea that maybe some people are born with that. I certainly was not, and but I've drawn a great deal of value from practicing that.
Yeah, I get it. The interesting thing is when we start talking about disciplines and consistencies, we often discredit some of the standard ones we come with, so to speak, or that we've learned, like brushing our teeth. That is a habit that is consistent for most people that are listening, as well as, showering from time to time. Hopefully that's a consistent one too. But those consistent things tend to help us, and we just have to add a few more of those in order to become the best version of ourselves that's required. So what would you say you've done there are many agencies out there, and there are many small, various large ones, etc. But why did you make it? Why not? What do you think other agencies or businesses are doing that's preventing them from getting to that mark?
One of the things that I believe our success, we already talked about the systemization and really being dedicated to that. But another piece is really understanding what we're good at and what we can focus on, and not be distracted by all the other stuff that we could do. Now, in our space, we occupy, a kind of a focus on building websites and doing internet marketing. But even in that, there's that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So we've narrowed that even further to say, we only work with WordPress websites. Like that is that platform is something that we focus on because we can be really good at. And we've eliminated other things that someone might expect of an agency to do. So, we're not the company that's going to be, designing your logo. We're not going to be doing any, print work for you. We're not, we're not even, really big into the e-commerce space at the moment. So it's something where the more we've been able to focus on the stuff that we're good at and that we can build systems around, the more we've been able to provide great service and help our clients be successful. And that's been a big strategy for us.
So focus, for lack of a better way of putting it,
right,
it has been part of the key. Ignoring the other things, and it's not that you couldn't do logos. I'm assuming you've made a logo at least once in your life. You've just chosen not to. Yeah,
it's a choice to do that, even though we can do a lot of different things. It's also focus on our team. I've had to learn a lot about working with other people and managing a team, and that stuff doesn't just happen. It has to be worked at. And I was guilty of doing that. In years past, I had a team here, and I wasn't coaching them. I wasn't talking to them. I wasn't managing. I wasn't setting any sort of vision, and that ended poorly. And today we've got a wonderful resource that is our team, that myself and our leadership team takes great care of by having a much more focus. There's that word again, focus on how we're communicating and what we need to do to help each one of those people grow themselves and grow within our company.
Yeah, I get it. If you build the people build the business.
Mhm. Yeah, we have kind of an idea that, in a big company, there's this whole idea of climbing the corporate ladder. And in order to get up to that next step, you got to either knock someone out of there or they've got to leave. But in a small company, we look at it a little differently where, instead of the ladder growing above us in a small company, as we grow, the ladder grows beneath us. And it's each of our jobs to make sure that our skills and our talents and our passions are keeping us at the top of our own ladder all the time.
You got that right. It's like build it under you. I like that idea.
Yep.
100%. So let's talk about something a little bit different, but kind of still. Some, people just don't have a lot of money to work with as they get started, and they feel like they can't make ends meet. Kind of back to what you were saying, staring at that mountain at the beginning of every month. And to some degree, that's definitely a mindset thing. Were there any challenges for you in terms of your background or upbringing to put yourself in this position to go, yeah, we can do $100,000 a month?
My mindset has always been that I have the ability to create, and if I need to create money, I can go out there and do that. So it's one of my greatest resources. That if everything else fails, I know that I can provide, and I know that I can make that happen. So that was a kind of a belief that was really helpful, especially early on. But I started this business with virtually no money. I had a computer that I had been using in college. I borrowed, or I didn't borrow. My dad gave me $400 to join the local Chamber of Commerce, and that was about it. I printed up some business cards. And so I got up early in the morning to go to a breakfast I didn't want to go to talk to people I didn't want to talk to. And, it was really awkward. And I had to throw myself into that. And, client by client, it just started happening, and it started to snowball and build and build. And like we were talking about before, there was definitely failures along the way, but the little wins is what added up to where we're at now. And it's hard. It's easy to forget that that's where it started. And I think that story that I'm telling you is not so different for a lot of people. That it's easy to not think about all the little things that you can do that can build momentum into something greater. My dad told me that in sales, my dad's been in sales for as long as I can remember, and he told me that there's all these chains, and the people that you meet are going to introduce you to other people. And in looking forward, you don't necessarily know how that means anything and how that adds up to anything important in terms of your ability to build or grow a business. But looking back, it's 100% clear. I can look back and trace clients that we have now, from client to client, to relationship, back to meetings, back to some of those early breakfasts that I went to years ago. And if I didn't get my butt out of bed to show up to that meeting, things could have been very different. So it was investing the time to do that, even though I didn't know where it was going. And especially then, I wasn't necessarily setting an outcome of what I truly wanted and what I wanted to build.
Right. How could you? You're just like, I guess I'm supposed to go to this meeting.
Yeah.
Dad paid for it. I better go.
Exactly. Yeah, hey, this is a good thing. Go do this. Okay, Dad. I had no reason not to believe him.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome right there. Now, for those that are listening, I know that there's some who probably want to begin to figure out, deconstruct, their own business or businesses or just their ideas, and figure out how they can duplicate some of the things that you've done. If they want to track you down or figure out some more, what's the best way for us to do that?
Yeah, so we're running a course that we call Agency Mastermind. And so we just wrapped up a 5-week training on exactly what I did to transition from selling one-time fixed bid web projects into selling recurring revenue projects that is now exceeding that $100,000 a month. So what we have is, if you want to go to agencymastermind.com/cashflow, you could have free access to a 5-week training course. So each segment's about an hour in length, and it breaks down and deconstructs exactly what we're doing. And I've got copies of our sales proposals in there. We talk about cash flow strategy. There's some really important things to know about how to transition, because doing this incorrectly could jeopardize your business, could really mess things up. So we've explained all those things. I've got lots of learnings, pricing plans, and there's also a campaign in there that helped us turn one of our worst months into one of our most financially successful. And we repeat that campaign every year, and it continues to grow. So a lot of transparency, a lot of things that have helped us are all there. And through there, we've also got a Facebook group if people would like to connect and ask more questions. We're just at the beginning of building something and wanting to give back to people who want to trace some of the paths that we've set. And we're eager to answer questions and engage in continued conversation.
Indeed, and I definitely appreciate that. That's very generous of you. Now, as we wrap up here, another question. Occasionally, there are individuals listening who they want to make business happen. They feel really good about it, or maybe they're in the middle of business and something negative is happening to them at this particular moment. Just pretend for a moment that that person is sitting in front of you and it's just you and him or her right now. What would you have to say to them?
I would say I would want to remind them or ask them, where are they going and how is this helping or hurting them from getting there? And then outline what are the things that need to change in order to one, overcome the immediate concern, and second, put them on a trajectory for achieving that outcome. It's what you just described is something that happens, once a week around here for me. There's always something that just stops me and says, "Oh, what am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? Is this really happening?" And that's been most helpful for me is thinking about how this adds up into the bigger picture. And most times, fast forward a few days or a week later, I'm not even thinking about that. And if that's the case, it probably wasn't that big of a deal or something that really should have been stopping me up that much anyway.
I get it 100%. 100%. Well, what I do want to do is I want to make sure that you are available to answer that phone, because I know the kid's coming. But most importantly, I want to thank you for taking the time to invest your knowledge and competency here with us and helping us grow at the Cashflow Diary.
Thank you, Jay. I really appreciate the opportunity.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. You've got a number of options in this one, if you think about it. I mean, maybe you should start journaling. Maybe you know what, that book, E-Myth, I probably should actually read that. And or maybe you just like, what, it's time to start documenting and putting some systems in place. You're beginning to hear, I hope, a lot of the same things over and over and over again. The ingredients to be successful, to get to that $100,000 month, it's out there waiting for you. You just have to go out there and grab it. It's been fun talking to you today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.